So yesterday, Elon Musk and Donald Trump held a joint press conference in the Oval Office. And there's a couple of things to take away from this entire conversation. Of course, you have corporate media calling Elon Musk the co-president, but all of this is being done with Trump's approval. And now the thing is, what I find fascinating is the outrage that you see from CNN and MSNBC. But when you look for this video in its full entirety, and this was pointed out by Daniel Lupker and also through my own work as well, that when you see this video, and obviously things will change because this calls into question just how YouTube is moderating content as well as comments, because all of you have said that your comments are being deleted by YouTube, which is very fascinating. But if you look at if things have not changed, because a lot can happen between last night and up until now, after this video, of course, many of the comments have overall for all the videos have been very open to the idea of looking into the corruption here in Washington, D.C., especially when you have all the scandals surrounding USAID, USAIDs. But we've known about this corruption for quite some time. Both Democrat and Republican lawmakers knew of this. They knew of the government waste. And it's important for us to look into this, but never forget that there's always that great distraction. But in comparison to videos that are far shorter, you will see something a little bit different, especially when you see it from MSNBC. A lot of hostile comments, or how dare Elon Musk do this? Elon Musk is stealing from us. This is happening. This is happening. We're going to lose everything. To quote George Carlin, they were always going to come after our Social Security. And the thing is, we've elected people into office that said they were going to fight for us, but never did. And because of now all this corruption is coming to light, many other actions are taking place. However, Musk, with Donald Trump, decided to defend DOGE in the Oval Office. So we have to look at this in its full entirety, because there's much to take away from this, especially in regards towards how things are also going to be presented onto social media. So let's look at this here real quick. Elon Musk on Tuesday defended the work of the Department of Government Efficiency alongside President Trump, who invited Musk to speak and sat at the Resolute desk as the tech mogul gave a lengthy address. The people voted for major government reform, and that's what the people are going to get. Well, it was also a backlash of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration. Musk also said he wanted to add common sense controls to government, arguing that his ideas are not draconian. And when asked about personal conflicts of interest with his work overhauling the government, Musk replied, "Transparency is what builds trust." Transparency in Washington, D.C. is like oil and water. Never will mix, and it's a bad idea. Anyways, in the first few weeks of the Trump presidency, Musk has led an effort to dismantle federal agencies, buy out hundreds of thousands of federal workers from their jobs, and take over payment systems within the Treasury Department and other agencies. On the one hand, you see many people cheering for this. On the other hand, okay, we're seeing a massive overhaul reform, but what kind of reform and who will this benefit? Cui bono? It is always a big question. So I want to pull up this video here, and this was from a live stream from yesterday's Oval Office meeting. So let's go ahead and play this. Let's play a good portion of it here real quick.
Which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it's not. It does not match the will of people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about 30 million,
right?
etc.
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, say, if you look at, say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list. And even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints.
So we're going to pause here for a second here. All right. I want to be very clear on what Elon Musk is saying. He is saying the obvious. And this was something that was going to happen eventually with the Democrats. And yes, even the Republican lawmakers, because I find it interesting that the Republican lawmakers are all shocked and surprised that this was happening. Now, the Democrats are circling around this and trying to defend everything that Elon Musk is showing. Now, until the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, is actually going to get successfully audited, hey, you know what? Then okay, good, because I want to know where all that waste is going. And I don't care where you politically align. I think no matter what, every single U.S. citizen wants to know why the Pentagon was never audited and how come it's always failed. And any attempt to do so, or any person's trying to do so, ended in complete disaster, failure, embarrassment, or something far, far worse. But this is showing just how inherently corrupt the system is for a bigger distraction. What has Misty Winston has always said, especially when the Zago brothers quoted her. Shout out to the Zago brothers. Check out their artwork. They've done fantastic work, by the way. If they're having you look at something shiny over there, you should be looking over here. It's all a distraction. Now, the thing is, yes, we as Americans need to know where our money is going. Yes, we know that the government is bloated and corrupt. And yes, we know that this country is severely in debt thanks to Democrat and Republican lawmakers leading us into pointless wars, bailing out their corporate overlords, their donors, their owners for all their ridiculous policies. Now, you could say that this is transparency, and perhaps, yes, Trump is delivering on his promises, but this is also the issue of a distraction to try and shore up further defense. And in turn, the Democrats, as an institution, as a political party, have fallen for this hook, line, and sinker. I mean, you have U.S. Congress politicians putting up a fake theater show in front of the Department of Education. Then you have a couple of them saying that they are going to fight and singing "Which Side Are You On" in the most cringiest way possible. And then you have the activists and protesters marching and protesting because Donald Trump. While all this is happening, what is happening on the side? Yes, foreign aid has been stopped, but money still went to Israel and money still going to Ukraine. How is that happening? Well, that's an opposite world because that's how DC operates. But we need to have true accountability. And in turn, while this is going on, we, the American people, are being satisfied and trying to at least be placated that there is the attempt of transparency. You cannot be transparent in a system that is so corrupt. Remember, Elon Musk and Donald Trump used to be Democrat donors. They gave money to the Democrats. So they know all too well just how the system is. It is totally corrupt. And all lies shall be exposed. And as we have all said, of course, and the way all of you are responding to as
All
well,
lies will be exposed.
as they should. But more importantly, this is also an indication of just what lies in store for us for the next 3 years. We still have a struggling economy. And while things may on the surface look like they're improving, how deep does this corruption go? And when do they put the brakes on? If they actually cross that Rubicon, and I like using that word, for the Pentagon, then good. Okay, maybe we are actually seeing some true transparency. But remember, the lobby groups, the influential people with money don't want to have their apple cart overturned. It's not because they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. It's relocating. It's shifting things around. We've all seen those movies before where it looks like something is happening and yet in the background, the real nefarious stuff is being hidden away. Let's continue on with this. Just want to pull up a little bit more of this video because then there's an also interesting commentary about how this is being presented on social media and in corporate media.
But now we're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, like it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's a case where, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately. Also, another.
Just a quick commentary on this. When George Carlin did his stand-up and saying that, hey, they're going to come after you, watch that line again. Watch that whole setup again. When George Carlin is saying they're going to come after your Social Security, he wasn't being funny about it. That was just warning. And he was putting on a smile, hey, guess what? They're going to come after your Social Security. They're going to get it back. He was ahead of his time. He's not vomiting in his grave. He's not spinning in his grave. He's doing a big Broadway musical saying, I told you so. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. They're going to do it. Because after watching this, and of course, also looking at the analytics, as well as the comments in the various videos, I'm going to give a huge shout out to my colleague Daniel for pointing that out. Because there's an odd point of transparency that's happening here, especially how this is being presented in the media, especially when people, regular viewers, are commenting and who is getting what and how the algorithm is working. Because that's another nefarious thing on here that has to be exposed. You know damn well that this is what's going to cause a further divide in the conversation, because people are going to start talking about, well, just how much is DOGE is going to look into this. And a few people have also pointed out, shout out to Mastermind Hour, as well as a few other Flex Digs, for example, will we look into the money that was put into Israel? Are we going to look at Elon Musk contracts with the government? Because there's a lot of government waste that's happening here. A lot. A lot. And if we're going to be fully transparent, everything must and shall be exposed.
Another crazy thing. So, one of the things is like we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this obviously there needs to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay, well, let's if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told that the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
I just want to pull this up here. Prim54 says, audit the Pentagon. And Herb Green, this one's for you. They've got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more to themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of, you guessed it, critical thinking. Okay? They don't want that. Hang on. Herb Green, they're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting effed by a system that threw them overboard 30 effing years ago. Herb Green with that, all right? Hold on. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shitier and shitier jobs with the lower pay. The longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to, you guessed it, collected. Shout out to Herb Green. Herb Green dropping it all. That's the man, the myth, the legend, George Carlin. Correct on that. The longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and vanishing pension, that disappears the minute you go to collect it. Absolutely. That's right.
And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else. And you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way. So anyway, so I think, that's an example. At a high level, if you say, like, how do we increase prosperity, is we get people to shift from roles that are low to negative productivity to high productivity roles. And so you increase the total output of goods and services, which means that there's a higher standard of living available for everyone. That's the actual goal. Everyone's very quiet. So are people normally this quiet?
Now, hold on. I do want to pull up a question here that was brought up by the press. So I want to pull this up here for everybody to hear.
That you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are in effect policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the DOGE handle on X and to the DOGE website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the DOGE organization.
Well, on one hand, yeah, we are witnessing some transparency, but just overall how much further. Now, of course, I'll be generous here. Perhaps maybe that's my fault. I'm too generous. But I'll give him time to show us what exactly, we find in regards to Elon Musk and his connections. Because after all, everything is connected. Everything is intertwined. I am very curious about the full audit of the Pentagon, if that's going to happen in this administration. Because if they do that, and that Pentagon has its first ever successful audit, if people aren't going to be furious about the money that has been wasted, done in our name, I don't know what to say about the psyche of the American people. Maybe George Carlin is truly correct. Maybe we truly are passive. Perhaps Jimmy Dore is right. We are the children of alcoholics, and we don't know how to respond to that abusive hand that's been whipping us for decades on end, that's been generational. Boomers, Xers, millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, hey, get up. You're going to be part of this like a family, like that Fantastic Four trailer. But also looking how corporate media has been covering this. I want to pull this up here because CNN also had to give its 2 cents.
Who's the one standing, taking most of the questions, having the president in this odd, jarring setting, looking up to him? Well, it was Elon. This was Musk's first press conference since Trump's election, and he took over. Trump literally, in all these images, kind of looked like he'd been pushed off to the side because Elon was the center of it. I mean, at times Trump seemed annoyed. I mean, it wasn't just that Musk dominated. He did speak.
Did they really have to show the kid digging in his nose? I mean, yes, it's funny. Did they? Come on, CNN. I know you're desperate for views, but who was in the editing room and decided that was a good idea?
For about 20 of the 32 minutes. So about 63.5%, if you're counting of the time. It was that Musk physically owned the entire event. He and his child were the center of the attention.
I mean, seriously, okay? Who did that? And then of course, BSDNC weighed in too.
The pushback is not sitting well with the co-presidents who held court in the Oval Office today together alongside Elon's toddler. And weirdly, it was Musk doing most of the talking. Perhaps he should have been the one sitting behind the Resolute desk. When he did get a word in edgewise, Trump did put the judges on notice with this ominous remark.
Now, of course, the ominous remark was, and to be very clear, that Trump was fully on board for what DOGE was doing. Because after all, the reason why all of this is happening is because of Trump's approval. Now, remember, Elon Musk dropped a nice chunk of change. Nowhere in comparison to what Kamala got, $2 billion. No. But he did play an influential role in boosting Trump's campaign during the 2024 election cycle. And as always, since all of you are very familiar with how this game is played, the people with the most money for the candidate that wins usually get what they want. It's a 100% certainty. Very rare does the billionaire walk off into the sunset and say, okay, I helped you into office. I don't have to ask for anything in return. Bye-bye. No. This is happening because 2024 was a reaction to what happened in 2020. So DOGE is going to be digging around, and in many ways, it could be argued, there's a little bit of revenge happening here. The Democrats were smug and arrogant enough to think everything's fine. And listen, to the diehard conservatives out there, these Republican lawmakers knew about USAID and everything else that DOGE is looking into. Nobody is innocent in this. There is not my team is better than yours, Team Red versus Team Blue. Everybody knows this, but I want to also address another aspect. The conversations and how this video and how this entire sit down with Elon Musk and Trump is being presented, at least on YouTube. Because for all the videos that are released above the 30-minute mark, you do see a lot of Americans, and let's be clear, a lot of Americans aren't really aware. Some are awakening to the fact of how corrupt our system is. And yes, I think we need to know just how corrupt and where our money is going. I think many of us will be furious if a successful Pentagon audit does take place. If a generous if it does take place. I'm wondering when the brakes will be put on and everything is stopped and we all forget about this in the next 2 weeks, or if it's continuous. But videos with the 12-minute mark, there's a night and day difference with the conversation on how the algorithm is presenting this to everybody on YouTube. Now, I've talked about the YouTube algorithm before. Hey, it's customized to your design and what you view as well. Or is it that what they think you want to see? There was once a point where YouTube was a true open meritocracy. There once was a point where it was an open playing field in which you were free to kind of see what you want. You would get a suggestion here and there, but now you're totally suggested. And even then, where if there is content you want to check out, oh my goodness, somehow you're not being notified. But the comments, it is the further division and the divide. All this is a true distraction. Yes, transparency is key. I'm very curious to see how much further DOGE will go into the overall government waste, because we are trillions upon trillions of dollars in debt. We are in debt. Who are we borrowing the money from? And what happens when it all comes crashing down? Well, the prices of eggs are going to rise up higher and higher, my lovelies. The prices of everything will rise up higher and higher. And who was responsible for it? Definitely our politicians. But also, where are things being reallocated? Because there is a full-blown panic. And if you are a person of influence in DC, yes, right now you're scared. Are you going to be on the chopping block? Is there going to be a blood sacrifice? And heads will roll. Maybe literally, perhaps. But this is called how you can maintain control within a system that is clearly shaking and rattling. The machine is dying. And yet, in order to get the car from point A to point B, you're going to have to let go of some dead weight. If I had to compare, maybe in a comedic scene, what's happening with DOGE and how it is, and look, I'm glad that it's doing this. I am. But there's also nefarious things behind it too. It's not white and black. It's shades of gray. But if I had to compare DOGE checking out the U.S. government and trying to let go of waste, I would compare it to that scene from Seinfeld where Kramer and Newman have all those soda cans. They're trying to go to Michigan and, trying to make some money. It's a get-rich-quick scheme. And it's not working. The U.S. Postal Service truck is crashing down. They're letting go of some of the cans, letting go of some of the dead weight. But what happens when that vehicle fully stops? When it finally ends, the ride is over. And that's the thing with the U.S. government. We've been spending so much money in our treasury, bailing out the top 1%. I want to know just how bad it is before the brakes are put on and when the brakes are put on. And then how that will be presented on social media, because everyone's going to want their talking points. And if those brakes are put on, who's going to spin it as a win? Who's going to spin it as a defeat? Or who's going to be spinning it as for further political capital for the midterm election cycle? Stay tuned to Hard Lens Media, because everything's going to be revealed. You only can keep a lie up going on for so long. And the American people, no matter where you stand, deserve to know. So as a final note, we're going to audit that Pentagon. We're going to find out where all that money went. Because my inner Chicagoan wants to know, where's the money? Where's the money? And how will this be spent?